Cruden now. Dag up in the line. Little show of the ball. Dag! Midfield to Nodu. Back try to the All Blacks. Here's his kick. And he's nailed it. And the All Blacks are the world champions for the second time. Smith takes it away to the right. Bensman up in the line. McCall floating apart. Carter goes for the drop goal. What a beauty! Wow! Bowden Barrett's got a heap of pace. He leads the charge. Go Bowden! That's off Stowage! That's the winner! To Leonard Brown. Inside Leonard Brown. Has Barrett inside. Scotty Barrett under the horns. Now Smith! Smith gets the first. Barrett is doing the chase. Barrett gets toe on him. How's the bounce? That's beautiful. Bowden Barrett.
We are just a couple of months away from seeing the first All Black team for 2023. The Rugby World Cup is not that far away, and it's time to talk about the big players. Where do we do that? Here on The Breakdown. Tonight, coming up next, All Black coach Ian Foster.
Tēnā koutou katoa, good evening and welcome into The Breakdown. It is great to have you joining us tonight. Roger Tuivasa has announced his future, and that'll be going back to rugby league with the Warriors in 2024. So there's so many questions. The band is back together. Jeff Wilson is here, Mills Muliaina and Sir John Kerwin as well. Were you shocked? Did you see this coming? What do you reckon, JK?
Wasn't shocked at all, actually. I thought it was going to happen. I just thought it was the Roosters. I think I might have said it on the show a little while ago.
It sounds like you brokered the deal. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
You had a lot to do with this, right?
No, nothing. Absolutely nothing to do with it.
Nothing.
Look, I just think he's had a run of bad luck. Started, COVID came, shoulder injury for Auckland, shoulder injury for the Blues, and now his cheekbone. I'm thinking if he looks at it and looks at the 12s ahead of him that have signed, you go back to your legacy piece, which is Warriors. Go back to the Wawas.
Absolutely, and he's an outstanding player. And the input that he's had on rugby's been enormous in terms of his presence, in terms of his stardom. But also, I mean, you talked about, it hasn't been as free-flowing as what he would have wanted, but also the results with the All Blacks last year. He would have probably wanted a bit more game time, a bit more nicer ride into playing for the All Blacks, but it just certainly hasn't sort of been his way. Am I surprised? A little bit that it's earlier than what I would have thought, but like you said, JK, you said the Roosters, but I'm pretty sure you knew it was always going to be the Warriors, mate.
Well, the Warriors will be absolutely over the moon, and he still has potentially 8 months to make a bigger impact on rugby here in New Zealand as well. We're so lucky on The Breakdown today to be joined by the head coach of the All Blacks, Ian Foster, joins us now live. Ian, thank you so much for your time. Let's start off and talk about Roger Tuivasa. Did you speak to him and have a conversation before he re-signed with the Warriors? And what are his chances of going to the World Cup later this year?
Yeah, thanks, Kirsty. Evening all. Yeah, he did. Look, he's a quality person, so he did everything right the way he went about it. So there's nothing untoward in that regard. I fully understand his decision. I think he's done it for a long term. He feels he can add a lot of value into the Warriors, but also, it probably leaves him a market to go into when he's finished playing. That he's got a big influence with a lot of younger players in that industry. So. I wish him well. In the meantime, he's eligible for the All Blacks. We have complexities of contracts now with people leaving, and quite frankly, the policy has always been if they're available this year, they're available, and we've made that clear to Rog. And I know he wants to give everything he can to try to make it. He's certainly improving. I'm disappointed he's leaving, but. Because I've seen the growth in him. I thought the start of Super Rugby, he really took another step up, and I was looking forward to seeing that continue, but that injury stopped it. But I'm sure he'll give us everything for the next few months.
Fozzie, one thing you won't be disappointed in is the competition around the 10s. So I want to talk that a little bit. You've got world-class 10s that anyone across the globe would want to pick. I look at sort of, the Irish and also the French. They're very set on who their 10 is. Are you in a position where you could soundly say that, you've got that sort of 10, that playmaker? And if you have, is he fair-headed or black?
Well, you know, one of the you can't talk like that anymore, Mills. You can't say that. But it's the reality is that the you know, we're pleased, but if you go back a few years ago, even 2 years ago, we probably were a bit concerned who was behind Bodie and Richie, and I think we've now seen the emergence of Stephen Perafita coming through and Damian's come back and, you know, took a little while to find his feet at the end of last year, but wow, I think he's been really impressive in Super Rugby, so delighted for him. We're reasonably settled, but it's as you know, we don't need to play our hand right now, but we've got a clear idea, and we've just got players working now on facets of the game because we need to build depth going into a World Cup. It's a tough competition, and we've all seen the impact of injuries on tournaments. So for us now, it's just a matter of making sure we get as many options as we can. We're getting quite greedy.
I just wanted to dig a bit deeper on that, Fozzie. You know, you said in an article this morning you like what you see in Damian, but what are you actually seeing that's different to the others?
Well, it's not so much that it's different to the others, but it's probably where Damian has come from. I think his challenge at 10 has been his depth management, and it's been able to know when to play flat, when to play deep, because he instinctively likes to take the ball to the line. He's now got that sorted, I reckon. I think he's doing a good job in that space. He's now controlling the game with territory. I think the Chiefs are playing a really good territory game and kicking game and picking their times of when to move the ball, whereas maybe historically Damian was a little bit more inclined to on the high risk, high reward type strategy. So I think that's the part, I think, JK, that's impressing us the most. He's still got a bit of work. Ironically, his goal kicking is probably not quite as effective as what it's been in the past. So there's a few things he's got to keep working on. But, you know, he's a big mover. We're excited for him.
Fozzie, over the next couple of months, players have got an opportunity now to impress you as they maybe force their way into an All Black squad. I want to talk specifically about the wing position. You've said across the board players need to improve and play better. What about that specific position? You've lost to Sevu Reece. There's a lot of competition there. What is it that you want to see in the next 2.5 months in that position specifically?
Oh, look, I think you got your normal stuff. You know, the attacking side of the wing plays are given, and we often see a lot of that in Super Rugby. But it's the other side of the game. Probably it's probably the high ball stuff where it's the defensive reads. You've got a lot of teams are now playing their wings defending really, really high, and they have to make a lot of judgment calls about do they carry on going and expose that wide channel? And so how they read that sort of situation is critical. And I think, you know, like I think, for example, Caleb, Mark, who I thought were really making great progress into last year, probably started Super Rugby a little bit slow in that regard defensively, but now have really worked hard on that. But it's really that defensive accuracy and that outside channel that's, you know, probably elevated in our thinking.
Fozzie, I know you've been locked in a room with all the other staff and doing your planning for this year, but there's only 5 test matches left. I mean, what are you looking to achieve out of those 5 test matches?
Yeah, look, we just got to get our game going again from where we picked up at the end of last year and really look at instigating a few things that I guess we've learned from looking at Six Nations this year. We've got to make sure that you know, you need to go into a World Cup with some big rocks all locked and loaded. And I'm talking about things like your line-out defence, which was an Achilles heel for us, you know, for a few years, and big teams were scoring tries too easily against us. We've got to make sure we really pick up where we left 2022 in that regard. We've got to make sure that, you know, one of our weaknesses last year, ironically, was when we were 15 points up. You know, there's 4 or 5 games that we got ourselves into great positions, and then when the pressure came back on us or someone scored, it was almost like we wanted to win so much, you know, to get everything right that we lost our way for little spells of game. So that's a big period of the game we've got to get right. So we've been working hard on that, how to adapt and adjust and deal with the moment. So that's a couple of big things for us.
Jeepers, Fozzie, it sounds like that laptop's been getting a hiding at the moment, mate. You're giving it a thrashing. But Are you anxious or sort of excited? Would you have liked another sort of camp to address those things, you know, prior to the semi-finals?
Oh, look, you know, we always want more, don't we? You know, in an ideal world, it would have been nice. I think you've seen the Wallabies have a camp this week and get a group together. But, you know, we're okay. It's not something that probably goes down that well in this country when we have one during Super Rugby. So we've made some adjustments there. We've got 3 leaders' days, but we've already had 2. We've got 1 more. But, you know, we're pretty confident going into that test series. I think, you know, one thing, coming back to your question a bit, JK asked about the 5 tests. I think that in 2019, we didn't play anyone in the Super Rugby final didn't hop on the plane to Argentina at the end of the next week. And we gave them a break, which really meant that I think we thought we sacrificed a few combinations in those first 2 tests of the year. We don't intend to do that this year. And, you know, we want to make sure that at the end of Super Rugby that people are fresh. They, you know, we're on the play to Argentina on that Friday or Saturday after that, so we need to go. So, but look, I'm excited. I think the next half of Super Rugby is going to be good. I think the Wallabies camp and some of the messaging there is going to guarantee that I think they're going to man up a little bit more in the second half of Super Rugby. Hopefully we see some really good arm wrestle tussles between New Zealand and Australian teams and just keep exposing us to some different styles.
A couple of things I want to quickly ask on is clearly that game, that last test in Twickenham against the Springboks is going to be an important hit out, but there's so much chat about the first game of the Rugby World Cup, but that's not where a Rugby World Cup is won and lost, right? So much of that game in France and Paris, I've got you thinking about already. You're always choking on something, but if you're planning for the World Cup itself, and it's a long tournament this year, how's that coming together? Do you like, I suppose, the work that's being done behind the scenes?
Yeah, look, the planning's going really good. You know, we're really excited about what's facing us. And yes, it is a long tournament. You know, we've got the hit out against, you know, the test in Twickenham against South Africa. Then we've got a week, you know, where we're going to, I think, to Germany to train at the Adidas campus, which will be pretty cool, before we go to Lyon. But, you know, I think what I love about this World Cup, a little bit like 2019 in some ways, but it's game one's huge. You know, 2019 was South Africa. This one's France. I think one of the differences for us, and we're going to feel this in 2023, is that we're going to the host country is probably the favourite to win it. And so we're going to be surrounded by fans and the whole country is going to be so much in behind the French, whereas, you know, you go to Japan, it was a slightly different setup. So, you know, we're going to feel the World Cup as soon as we hop off the plane. And I'm really confident with the planning. I think you just got to take a game at a time. That's what we've learned at World Cups. We can go through some pool plays, but I look at Italy and there's no way you can just coast through that game. They nearly bowled a few teams in Six Nations. So, you know, it's the challenge is there, but, you know, wow, this is just what we need. And we believe we've been working in some really positive directions on large parts of our game last year. And now's the time to put it all together.
Fozzie, combinations, little Bunce, little Horan, Nonu Smith. I mean, am I just old school thinking that combinations are important to the midfield? Or are you a little bit worried that, you know, Anton Leonard-Brown's been a little bit injured, Havili's injured? I mean, is that just a thing of the past? You just got to have guys that can interact whenever they're needed? Yeah,
look, I think we've probably had it's been an area, JK, that we've had a lot of, I guess, injuries over the last 2 years that sort of stopped that regular content. We've played around with you know, when we introduce the Geordie into the midfield, and that's taken a bit of time because there's been some injuries in the back three, which have kept Geordie in the back three for us. So, but all those things have happened, I think, have put us in a great position. Like I was really confident with the combinations we had last year. I thought David Havili was strong when he came in, and I guess he faded away a little bit at the end, but he's a quality footballer and he'll be better for some experience. You got Geordie, who's, you know, he played some big tests in the midfield and showed how physical he can be and what he can contribute. So, and it's great to see him continue that at super level. I still think he's a couple of steps off at super level, but I think he has a slightly different role probably in the Canes than what we have. So that's okay. Good experience for him. But I'm confident, JK. I think we've got the players in there. And I can't do much about Anton. And, you know, all I know is that he's such a professional player. He's so determined, and I know when he gets his chance to come back, hopefully it's only a week or two away, that you know, he'll show his quality as well.
And the Rugby World Cup isn't the only major event this year, arguably bigger, the FIFA Women's World Cup that'll be in Australia and New Zealand. It'll be talked about in your household with your incredibly talented daughter who is hoping to make it for New Zealand. It must be a really exciting time in your household.
Oh, it's bitterly disappointing. She's taken the whole gloss off my year, isn't she? But, you know, they haven't named that squad yet. Michaela's really realistic, and she's got an 8-week training camp coming up in Auckland, so there's a lot of work for her to do, but certainly a big goal for her.
Well, we're hoping, we've got our fingers and toes crossed for her as well, and she is a seriously ridiculous footballer. It's amazing. Just before we let you go, Humour Mills for a moment, take your All Blacks hat off. Does anyone beat the Chiefs this year?
Oh, very hard to see them go through unbeaten, I reckon. That would be a huge effort to do that. And like I said, I think we're going to see a little bit of a bit more steel in the Aussies, and I'd say there's a couple of Kiwi teams that have been pretty hurt by what the Chiefs have done. So might be quite an interesting one this weekend, eh?
It's going to be a huge game this weekend. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate having you on the program, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday night.
Thanks a lot, team.
Thank you so much. It is a big game, the Chiefs against the Crusaders in Hamilton, but let's dissect all of that. There was a lot to talk about. We'll start off right at the very top. Roger Tuivasa Sheck, is he still in the mix to make the Rugby World Cup? Yes or no from each of you? Will he make it?
No chance. No chance.
No, definitely got a chance.
No chance unless...
Okay.
Goldie.
Okay.
No chance unless I think Anton Leonard-Brown or Havili doesn't make it. I think the positive for Roger is that he can cover wing, and if I was him, I'd come back and play on the wing for the Blues a wee bit. But I think it's a hard ask.
Hold on, you're just asking Caleb Clark and Mark Talia to go, you know, I want to give Roger Tuivasa Sheck an opportunity to play on the wing. I think that horse is well and truly bolted. We didn't get this right from the start. The moment we brought him into rugby, we put him in a position which was too difficult to learn, and that was Super Rugby. Too hard in 2 years to learn the skill set you need to go to the very top, to the next level. I think he's done remarkably well, given the limited amount of time he's had on the field. He needed to play rugby. He didn't get the opportunity to do that. I agree with Ian Foster. I like some of the things I saw at the start of this year. I saw him in the pre-season run at fullback, and he looked really good there.
Does he make the All Blacks?
Well, he can.
He said no.
What he can do, but it's going to rely very heavily for Mills on the fact the Blues giving him an opportunity and the Blues playing well. And at the moment, I don't think they're doing enough for us to see what he is capable of. But do we do this again? Do we bring someone in who's got all the athletic ability in the world, which he clearly has, and how do we go about it? We did it with Sonny Bill Williams, and it worked. But I'm not sure. You tried it with Benji Marshall.
How many test matches did Sonny Bill start?
Not many. But are you saying, based on what we've got now, if we picked the team today, he could possibly make it?
No, not in the squad. But if everyone's fit and available, if Anton Leonard-Brown is on the field, I think at the moment he's just sitting outside that group. Yeah. But they've invested some serious time in the last 2 years into Roger Tuivasa Sheck.
Totally. And I think, to be totally honest, it's a tough position. When he first came out, and he had a good season with the Blues, you know, that started that first year. Hard because of the content. You know, you're coming from league, and it's a specialised position, 12. You're not only sort of going out there to do his magical feat that he has and beat defenders and actually tackle, but you also have to make some calls. And the hard part of that is actually adjusting to being the call maker alongside your 10. You know, when your 10 goes sort of missing, you've got to step up. And that's where he's really struggled. But I don't think, based on, I think he's going to be struggling to make the Rugby World Cup team unless someone gets injured.
Where would you have played him?
I would have played him at fullback.
No way.
100%. And everyone talked about the fact we've done...
Have you ever seen a rugby league fullback kick the ball back?
What's that? Oh, I've seen him grubber it when he's had to, when he's gone to the front line. I've seen him being a playmaker. I think he had the ability of that. But I wouldn't have done it at Super Rugby. This is the issue. You can't learn your trade at Super Rugby. If you haven't played for a number of years, you couldn't... We tried to do it with Benji Marshall and it didn't work.
Last year, you were talking about how you want some of our backfielders to improve their on-the-run kicking. It was one of your... expertise. Do you think that Roger Tuivasa could have come back to fullback and played the rugby kicking game?
So we asked Roger Tuivasa to become Ma Nonu, right? How long did it take Ma Nonu to become Ma Nonu? Where did he start for the Hurricanes?
You didn't answer my question.
Where did he start? He
was
on the wing. Oh, yeah, hold on. But Ma Nonu couldn't kick the ball either, remember?
I would have played him on the wing. I would have played Tuivasa on the wing and then forced him into going there to learn his trade. I think the kicking was a
decision. Who decided to play him in the midfield?
I thought he should have been a midfielder.
Well, the Blues signed him as a midfielder.
I thought
you think wing, fullback, and you think midfield.
Oh, look, I honestly think he's had bad luck. Full stop. He's had no consistency of games. Yeah. Like, you think about Sonny Bill. Sonny Bill came back and played the whole season for the Chiefs at 12, right? They left him there. Roger probably hasn't put 10 games together, has he?
It's hard to say, yeah.
Well, he hasn't because he's been in the All Black environment, because he hasn't been playing NPC rugby. He hasn't had that opportunity. We should have left him alone. That's one of those things, right? When you make an investment like this, the initial reaction is we've got to get him out there playing so people can see him. He actually needed a year back in the game, playing as many games of rugby as he possibly could at every single level available to him. So all of a sudden he learned all of the skill set that is required and got an understanding of time and space and depth and all those things, Mills, that you need. Too hard to learn. An international at Test match level, too difficult for the young man.
Timing wasn't on his side, because if you think of the year the All Blacks had last year, and then we ended up bringing in a fullback into second five. We brought Barrett in to actually try and fix the injuries that we had. We weren't quite confident on letting him sort of start there because the team was under pressure. So it didn't actually quite work out for him in terms of that sense, in terms of the ride that he would have got had he been in a really successful team that was sort of going forward. Great player. And I think that I'll go back to that first year when I was thinking that he'd play wing when he came over, but when he played for the Blues at second five, he showed some stuff that I was like pretty amazed with in that first sort of 3 to 4 rounds.
Well, let's pick up on a couple of other things that Ian Foster talked about. The look at 10 settled, too early to show their hand, but for you two on form right now, would you be putting Damian McKenzie in there at 10?
That's a tough one, eh? I mean, form. If you picked on form, you'd say he would be. I tend to think that Mo'unga still is the 10. It's a hard one because Damian's playing, so well. But he's got the luxury, hasn't he? He's got three quality 10s that he's going to pick from. I actually think, Beauden Barrett's our 15. And I think the other two are fighting it out to be the 10 and sort of the way they go about it. So it's interesting to hear him say the maturity that McKenzie's actually showing, because he has done a lot. He's sort of nailed his game down to not be so open as what he used to be.
What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing because I know where he's going. You're going with Damian McKenzie at 10, right?
No.
You're not?
No. He is the greatest bench player in the world, and we will not win the World Cup unless he comes on late and completely cuts people open. He won't like that. He could start at number 10 at any other country in the world. The thing that I believe about 10s is you need to give them the keys to the house, right? They need to go, Richie Mo'unga, this is your football team. Go, son.
Yep.
Right? Or Bodie or Damian. You can't mess with that this year. We've got 5 games. Make your decision and do it. However, for me, I love Damian McKenzie has brought a new look for the defence to look at. I'll keep saying it. He plays like a rugby league standoff. Runs across the field. He's got guys cutting off him, different angles. And I think that is more difficult for defence systems. They've got to slow up. What we're seeing from the other 10s at the moment is a lot of kicking games. So for me, he's in the side. If you started him, I'd be happy because I love the way he plays. But I think bringing him on late, the last 20, 25 minutes, wow. You need to be careful with tired defences, and I think he'll win us the World Cup.
I want to look a little bit deeper into this a little bit later on, because there's some things that both of them are doing that are critical, actually, for all 3 of those if we're going to have success in the Rugby World Cup.
Just to finish, how good was Fozzie?
Yep.
Open, honest.
It was.
Told us stuff, said players some of them need to step up. How good was that?
Well, that's the thing. You asked the question about the wingers. He name-checked a couple of wingers that had a slow start to the season, Caleb Clark and Mark Telea. Do you think he's happy with where his wingers are at right now?
No, he's clearly challenging them to be better. But he did today. He named a couple of other guys, and Sean Stevenson and Amoni Narawa. And he's my bolter, Amoni Narawa, for the All Blacks this year, this Rugby World Cup team. I really like the way that he's played. He hasn't played the last couple of weeks, but he's big, he carries, he's good under the high ball, and he's good at the one thing, I believe, that Ian Foster talked about. Defensively, he makes good decisions, and he's committed to his defensive game, and he can hit. This is what we all do. This is what all our outside backs do in this country. They score tries. This guy here, to me, is the one, if he can continue to play, he'll force his way in with the injury to Sevu Reece.
Nehe Milaskata took the world by surprise. You've got to realise that everyone studies everyone else. It's going to be good to have a bolter that the world hasn't seen. I think that with Talia and Clark, it's both a defensive thing. I think, you know, different defensive systems when you close the gates, hard to read. So I think that's what Foster will be talking to them about. Because you can't, I mean, can you fault their attack? Probably not. So I think he's probably talking about getting that timing right, coming off your line. But yeah, I think a bolter would be good.
And I think Narawa does that. He does that very well. You've got to remember, he's been around for a wee while. What I like about the way he's playing is that consistency. Because he's had a lot of injuries, he looks really comfortable within what he's actually doing. Can play numerous positions, centre, you know, be it wing or even fullback. He kicks really, really well. He's a big guy. So in terms of the way he sort of, if he fits that mould and the makeup of the rest of the squad, I think he's got a high chance of making that team. You
cannot take a third winger if he doesn't cover more than one position. So Talia and Clark are specialists. The third one's got to cover another position.
No, we've got players who can cover everywhere. We've got 4 or 5 fullbacks. I mean, that's what we've got. In that squad, we've got 4 or 5 guys who could play fullback. I've got no problem finding space for these guys. No issues whatsoever. So much versatility in the group. It leaves you be able to take a few specialists, if you ask me.
He's not on my team at the moment.
You're scratching your head, JK. It wouldn't be a breakdown episode without some whispers in the corridor. Have you heard anything this week?
Voce di corridoio. Wow, this is a real good one. This is a real good one. Ricky Tally. Kieran Crowley's down here, and apparently someone got him a passport, and Ricky Tally's going to play for Italy this year. There you go. Francis Douglas, from Francis Douglas to Italy. I completely made that up. It's not true. There's no Voce di corridoio this week. But what I did want to ask you, Mills, is have you heard anything about the assistants, or what would you do
for next year?
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting topic, isn't it? Because you know, Dave Rennie's going to be out there whether he comes back to the Blues, the makeup of next year. If I had my way, obviously Razors will have the 2 Jasons, Jason Ryan and Jason Holland. You've got Leon there, also Scott Hansen, and the big kicker for me is, we've spoken about this before, is having a mentor type guy, and I'd bring soon to be Sir Wayne Smith.
Totally agree with that. But Voce di corridoio, I know you've got Voce di corridoio, but you won't tell us, and that's wrong, because people want to hear your Voce di corridoio.
No, look, this is what I'm hearing. I think next year, Beauden Barrett will be playing for the All Blacks again. He would have found a way to be involved with New Zealand rugby. We know he's going to Japan. I think he'll be back, and not just in the short term, I think in the long term. I think we'll hear that sooner rather than later.
Well, talking about Yen, Voce di corridoio, Dave Rennie will not be coming back.
This is so good. This has been the best one yet.
You went from having nothing to now all of a sudden you'll keep coming. What corridor is he going into, man?
You've all got news. Beauden Barrett coming back to New Zealand, potentially Wayne Smith joining the All Blacks next year, and Dave Rennie not coming to New Zealand. That is the whispers in the corridor this year, apparently. Watch the breakdown every week, because you get your news here first, don't you? You have to wait and see if that is confirmed. But everyone has their opinions, just like these guys. And this week, the tongues have been wagging about Roger Tuivasa.
Once a Warrior, then a Blue, and now a Warriors once again. RTS is coming home.
Roger Tuivasa has confirmed he is going back to rugby league, but he's dropped a bombshell. No one expected this at this time.
Roger Tuivasa has decided it's time to head back across town. Did you have anything to do with that?
Yeah, I tell you, 2 years in a row, baby.
come out, he's an absolute superstar, guys, in terms of what he's done. And he's promoted the game, you know, just his presence in itself. He's got the All Black jersey. He'll always be an All Black. And now he goes back to the Warriors and he's going to be an outstanding player once again.
I think it's a great outcome for rugby league fans, both here and across the Tasman. A great outcome for rugby league in the face of a bit of an all-out war with rugby union.
I think probably it gets rid of any speculation. He's just put his stake in the ground. He can get out there and play rugby for the rest of the season and hopefully for the All Blacks as well.
She has done so much for the game of rugby union and rugby league in this country. Well, she's looked comfortable in the boxing gym as Tegan, but she's under some early pressure here from the multiple international Honey Hirimi Smiler. Big right hook too. Honey Bill Hirimi Smiler.
Oh, she is an absolute beast, our friend Honey Hirimi Smiler, and this week she has cast her eyes across all 4 Super Rugby Pacific games and come up with her Form 15. It is my pleasure to announce it. If you're wondering what's going on, she will explain all right after this. In the front row, Ioane Moananu, Samasoni Tokiaho and Ricky Riccatelli. Yes, not in position, but she will explain. Brodie Retallick, Will Tucker in the second row. In jersey number 6, Sammy Penny-Finau, Adrian Choate and Hoskins Tuitupou makes the team again. Cortez Ratima got a second start for the Chiefs this weekend. He joins Richie Mwanga at 9 and 10. David Havili and Daniel Rona, the guy that has come from concreting in Taranaki to an injury replacement for the Chiefs. It is a great story. And the back 3, Caleb Clark, Zahn Sullivan and Damian McKenzie. That is Honey's Form 15, but we'll let you explain why, Honey.
Kia ora team. Well, this is my team for round 9 of our Super Rugby Pacific. Another good weekend of footy. Couple of games there, some of the conditions, well, you know, fairly atrocious, specifically Friday night, Chiefs versus the Drua. I'll tell you what is on press though, my Chiefs, how good was that skill execution, their ball handling under those kind of conditions really shows why they are the team to beat. However, some of my picks, I know what you're thinking, got a whole lot of hookers sitting in the front row. Look, I'm rewarding performance for me. Really impressed with Ricky Riccatelli. I thought he came out there, you know, really stepped up for the Blues. You know, just so clinical in his core roles, plenty of energy. The standout for me, though, was Ioane Moananu. Well, man, he took his opportunity, didn't he? Flowing over late replacement, put in a massive shift, but the footwork in that try that he put out there, he was definitely number 1 on my list when I saw that. I thought, this is what we need. He could easily shift and be a loose head prop, tight head prop, I'm not sure, whatever, but we need him out there a lot more because he's good. Heading to my backs, rewarded Daniel Rona. I thought he was excellent for the Chiefs on Friday night, heavily involved, carried well, caused havoc defensively for the Drua. Couple of try assists, look, just a massive performance from him. Zahn Sullivan, another one, a little bit out of position, but look, I wanted to reward him. I thought he was outstanding. Again, just come on, you know, real brilliant, straight away, constant competitor. Yeah, had to find a spot for him, so shoved him out there on the wing. And again, D-Mac, just, you know, another player of the match performance. I think he's just the mastermind behind everything that the Chiefs are doing so well. So look, that's my team for the week. Sammy Penny-Finau. I know I'm mentioning a lot of Chiefs players. For me, I thought he was the man of the weekend. Just an absolute outstanding Sammy Penny-Finau, my player of the weekend. Go out,
Thank
team.
you very much, Honey. A lot of Chiefs in there, but that's okay.
Honey's got confused with rugby league scrums. That's where you just fold in.
She's following Jeff and just making the rules up like he does when he names his Form 15.
I like it. Does it matter? It does. At the start of the year, we were briefed. Every week you pick a Form 15. Oh, you know what? Harry Plummer player. I'm going to put him at lock. Okay, no, actually next year, I'm going to pick this person because he's going to be big next year.
Backs.
The only person that picked well was, I don't know who it was round 2. They're the only person.
Was that you?
I'm not too sure who it was, but they picked really good Form 15. What's going on here?
Okay, well, you said it's a good team. What do you like about it? What are the players that you like? She said Sammy Penny-Finau, for one, had a player...
I'm sure it was Stephen Bates I was talking to about that. His All Black bolter was Sammy Penny-Finau. And the fact that the way that he played the game, the All Blacks at a blindside flanker, specifically that role, carries, physical, whether it was Batesy or not, I'm not sure, but I've kept an eye on him since then, and I'll tell you what, he continues to shine and played really, really well. Like, I don't have any issue with it, because all the players that Honey's picked have all played well. Yeah. It's just a matter, it's nice to know that some people are standing. You don't agree?
No, I agree, but I've gone back to the All Black side, right? So you're talking about bolters. For example, Zahn Sullivan. You said before we've got a lot of actual fullbacks in the side, so he probably doesn't become a bolter. So when you think about someone like Ricky Riccitelli, when you talk about these guys are going to be bolters, do we have to understand the rest of the guys in the side? Because this guy's got a huge, long kicking game. If he could play on the wing, does he become a bolter? Does Ricky Riccitelli, if he actually could play prop, become a bolter?
Oh, look, we've just... Hold on. What have we just lost, though? We've just lost, you know...
He's going to Italy, mate.
I'm not joking. George Bauer, he's been ruled out. Nepo Lalala's gone down with a calf injury, which is another injury. You don't know how easy it is to come back. I mean, Samasoni Tokiaho, I'll tell you what, I mean, I'm pretty sure if he wanted to play prop, he could. But, I look at it. Zahn Sullivan's a really nice case for me, the fact that we need to consider how we get some of these guys that don't get to play often enough the opportunity to go and play for the Highlanders.
I
knew that was coming.
You just want them to go down south.
You need a bit of help.
But if we're going to pick a bolter, right? A bolter, they're the ones that have been picked in that position week in, week out for their team to then be picked in the form 15. You can't pick bolters on one performance.
Oh, so you're saying form over the course of the season?
Well, how do you...
We did that once, and then you got into me for that as well.
No, you're talking about the All Blacks, aren't you?
Yeah, if you're talking about the All Blacks, if they're in the form 15 every week because they're starting for their franchise every week,
I agree with
and you're not sort of picking a form 15 based on next year or whether they've played... You know, you're not picking an All Black side. We're picking a form 15, and that's your form 15. But in terms of the bolters, they have to be playing week in, week out.
Can I ask you a question, Mills, because you actually know way more than most of us around contracting players. How can Daniel Rona not have a contract?
Well, you got to remember, when the Chiefs picked their squad, you had Anton Leonard-Brown, you had
Alex
Nankivell. Tuipau was part of that. He's been signed for a couple of years, so he might have been on a draft. And then once you go into the draft, in terms of using the draft players, when they get injured, then you have to bring someone else in. And so that's why, you know, if they're all fit and healthy, he doesn't make the squad. You can't pick based on that, and that's why he's sort of missed out. And then
but I mean now, what does he get now? Does he get match payments? Do they contract him?
I'm pretty sure they're match
concrete
fees.
Truck driver salary. What's going on?
Match fees.
He'll get match fees.
Yeah. He'll get match fees.
But Rameki Pohepi's in that group as well, right? So all of a sudden you've got guys. It's a great story, though. It's a great story.
It's a beautiful story, but I want him to get a contract.
Highlanders.
Oh.
Go,
Stop
Jeff.
sending them all down there.
Don't you worry about us. We'll be just fine.
Well, it is time now for our Musashi power play. Musashi is available at Chemist Warehouse. It was Beauden Barrett's 150th game over the weekend, Jeff, and there was a few things you've been noticing about his game.
Yeah, I'm looking at tactical kicking going forward, and this is actually looking at a combination of first fives that we've been running. This is Richie Mo'unga we're talking about here, which is not the Musashi power play, but we're highlighting the kicking game, and I'm doing it with Beauden Barrett as well, and we'll look at those. That reality is you put it in the right part of the field, turning the defences round. And that's the difference I've noticed for me, Mills, across the Chiefs, and the Blues did it last night, right? They started targeting the edges and for space, and they were prepared to keep the ball in hand for a little bit longer and change the defence. When you kick for space, right, all of a sudden it changes line speed. Line speed creates space. When that happens, all of a sudden your attack becomes so much more effective. The balance that I think Ian Foster's looking from all their players, we're starting to see that from Beauden Barrett.
Yeah, it's painting that picture, really, eh? Going wide like you showed with Mo'unga, you know, is it on? It sort of, defences have to hold this and say, well, actually, now I've got to come up to actually try and cover that. All of a sudden, the backfield's sort of open, so they rush up a little bit quicker to give them not so much space. But everyone's got to be on the same page. They've all got to be seeing that same sort of picture, JK, which is something that our teams possibly haven't quite got right yet. But when they do, outstanding.
What is this?
Two things for me. Two things. Play what's in front of you, so if the gap's there. And the second thing is, the whole world, after Eddie Jones worked out how to beat us in that semi-final, thinks we suffer from rush defence. So the kicking game early is actually to break down and slow up that defensive line.
And that's why I want to look at the numbers here. You think about, we talk about Damian McKenzie, when you think about the role that he plays with ball in hand, but he's got the highest kicking numbers of the 3 first 5 that are playing through the course of this competition so far. And you talk about his goal kicking at the moment, that's something that Ian Foster highlighted. He'd like to see a little bit more from that. But it's finding that balance. And for me, I think we're starting to see that. And the Chiefs have set a standard in terms of their mindset about how they want to play. I think the Blues have worked out that that's where their talent and opportunity lies, that you can't go out and continue to beat up sides.
I know why he's kicking badly. That smile of his is not big enough. He's got to improve the size of his smile before
here's
he
an
kicks.
interesting thing. Do you think maybe because he's got to do it quicker?
McKenzie.
Oh, McKenzie.
Do you think maybe because he's got to do everything a little bit quicker? No other goal kicker I've noticed in this competition gets the 20-second call as often as he does. In terms of, you hear it from the referee, and then you can tell all of a sudden maybe it's because he's now had to speed up his process and what he's been doing. He was certainly one of those guys that took a while, you know.
Who does this change in mindset, who does it suit at first 5, and does it also give the 12 and 15 extra responsibility, Mills? Because we love holding on to the ball, right?
We do, and that's...
We've seen it in Super Rugby every week.
It's the hardest thing because we're taught to play like that. You just mentioned it, play what's in front of you, and then when you get an opportunity and you get sort of inroads and massive meters, but then you all of a sudden it's halted by the defence sort of reacting and getting themselves sorted. That's the balance we've actually got to get, and we haven't quite nailed that.
Can I ask you both a question, if you're dishing out questions? If I look at it and go, what's our best opportunity to score for the All Blacks historically? Has the structure of the game that we've been playing to for such a long period of time, has that finally started to hurt us? The fact that players don't have that instinctive mindset. Beauden Barrett talks about it. He plays his best when he's instinctive. Have we lost that instinct for, you know what, it's time for us to have a go?
I think we have. I think it's been a huge part of our game that we've actually lost getting ourselves into structure because we've been so successful and teams have read it. Now there's an opportunity in front of you, but oh no, I've got to get myself into this position here because that's where I have to be. I've got to pass the ball because theoretically this is what we're supposed to do in this part of the field. I think there's an element that we've got to get the balance between having more of seeing what's in front of you compared to get into structure. There is that side of it where you've got to get into structure when things, to get yourself back into a bit of form, a bit of shape, and then seeing what's in front of you.
It's not saying there's not a place for it though, JK.
It's called an identity crisis. So...
This is where I thought we'd go with this. This is where I thought, how long have we got?
I'm being serious. It's what happens when you lose a few games. Ireland don't have an identity crisis. They are... picture perfect and they know where everyone's going. France have come up with a style of game that suits the French rugby. I think when you've got an identity crisis about, do we need to be more organised or should we play what's in front of us, sometimes you can doubt your game. And I think, we were talking off-air, Mills, about how exciting it is when you get a turnover and you just play. So I think one of the things that Fozzie will be trying to work on over those 5 games is what is our style?
Why do we enjoy watching the Chiefs play so much right now?
They play.
They play. But we've just seen that Damian McKenzie's got the highest kicking numbers in terms of he's kicking the most metres. You just watch the variety to his kicking game. And they did this in the early on in the game against the Fijian Drua, where they went in behind. This is just them seeing space, recognising where to kick to, guys being on the same page, he's connected with Etini Nanai Satoro. The whole time he's finding space. Field position. And you're thinking, look at this, wonderful finish on Narawa here. But all of this threat changes how the defence comes forward. But it's more instinctively from that. It's the counter-attack side of the game for me.
Can you just stop?
Why?
Because you can't talk about kicking, right? That's attack.
Yeah. It's exactly it, though.
Right.
That's actually
not kicking.
But for me, it's when you're on defence, it's what you do next, right? And so quite often we just try and clear space and then rely on our defence. Turn our defence into attack. And then when you and manipulate the backfield, manipulate the attack.
Are we going to have the courage to do that cross kick in our 22 against Ireland in the semi-final?
But sorry, I'll just quickly, Mills, but in the Northern Hemisphere, if you watched us on the tour last year, we did. We had the courage. When we got a turnover, we looked for the space. How do we get it there? I'm in my own 22, doesn't matter. We'll kick to the far side against Scotland. I think Rieko Ioane picked up the kick. We'd gone down the other end of the field.
I've got no qualms with us being able to do those tactical kicks, across field, and outside our 22, the execution. Where I think our kicking needs to improve is when things get boring. You know, we're sitting in the middle of the park and we're going, okay, we're holding on to the ball, something's going to happen. So that's when everyone's got to be on the same page. Is it a 28-metre kick where it's an attacking kick? We're not just kicking the ball away only for them to pick back up and then we're putting ourselves back under pressure by having to defend. They've got to be attacking kicks, and it's the middle of the park where I'm worried about.
Couldn't agree more. And remember who was one of the best in them? It was Ben Smith. He chased that kick on the right wing. Every time he went up, he went and contested for it.
The other hard thing is that one of Ireland's X factors at the moment is they don't give you the ball. You remember the second and third test, they just don't give you the ball. So that puts you under pressure on whether you're going to kick it away.
Is that
whether
us,
you're going to
though?
take that risk.
Is that us? Is
Getting
that
the ball off Ireland?
Is that our game?
No, they
just
paint by
hold on?
numbers, mate. They know exactly every blade of the grass on the field. They know exactly who's going to clean out. Like, they won't take a risk on passing, you know. Like, they know everything about where, and they hang on to the ball for long periods of time, which then creates pressure on you when you get it in your 22. You think, am I going to kick it back to them?
We've got to strike and strike often. Offset piece, we've got to have a crack.
Hold on to your thoughts. I'm absolutely loving this, but we still have more to come on the breakdown. We're going to chat the golf between New Zealand and Australian sides, look ahead to the Drewers' next 2 home games, which could prove really important towards the playoffs. But first, Beauden Barrett and his 150th Super Rugby game, but he's talking about moments from across his career.
Try assists now, and this is winding the clock back to 2016, back in my days at the Hurricanes, and Chiefs broke out on a counter-attack, and my good mate TKB spilt the ball. Colsey, was that Ricky? It's actually Ricky. Jumped on the ball, and I was in the backfield. Ricky had the heads up to pop the ball to me, and let's see how this rolls out. Got my good mate Jimmy Marshall outside me. He's still probably the best communicator on a footy field that I've ever had the pleasure of playing with, along with Tim Bateman. It's all just get the ball and scan, survey your options, and obviously there wasn't a lot of run space outside me, and because TKB spilt the ball, he wasn't in the second line to cover the kick, so this doesn't come off too often, and coaches get a bit annoyed when I do this, but this time it worked. Little chip and chase from a counter-attack. Leon said the other day only about 5% of them come off, so this was one of the 5%. The ball bounced up, just tried to stay alive and find some mates. And who was it? Oh, Willis Halaholo in the right corner. Popped up in the nick of time and managed to get an offload going. So, yeah, that was just playing with freedom, as we always did at the Canes, and it was a great way of playing footy, and I really enjoyed that.
So now the Hurricanes on the counter-attack, and Barrett drops the little kick in behind and picks it up. Now, can he link up Beauden Barrett? He's got a fair bit of pace. Got his pass off, and what a try!
When I'm playing my best footy, I like to be instinctive, and that's what can happen from those moments. And this was just a heads-up moment. Yeah, these things don't come off too often, but when they do, it looks pretty good.
No, my Hookie, my welcome back into the breakdown. I wish he came back 5 seconds earlier because Mills is literally fanning himself off. These two are saying they feel like there's a breeze going on, but it is time now to talk Super Rugby with Nurofen, available at Chemist Warehouse. Yes, there was one result over the weekend that the Aussies actually won. It was, unfortunately for Jeff, the Highlanders against the Force in Western Australia, which you assured me your side would go over and win. But we're looking at the divide. Over the last 3 years, Australia in 2021 won just 2 matches against New Zealand sides. Last year it was 8. This year so far it has dropped back to just 2. The Brumbies are obviously a side very capable, but are we seeing this gulf grow bigger at Super? And does it matter for international rugby when the Wallabies just need to pick one team?
Oh, a couple of things for me, like the Waratahs leaving 8 players at home unacceptable for the competition. You know, they've got their breaks, so you can't really complain because we have our All Black breaks. We sort of understand that. The Australians have just got to cop it because they don't have enough players to cover 5 franchises, but that's what they want. So that that reflects poorly sometimes on the competition, but that's what they want. They've already taken a side out and everyone blew up, so they're back together, and they obviously see that as a strategic way forward for a better Wallabies side. So
I was hoping we'd get through enough time so I wouldn't have to talk about last night. I'm not lying to you, because it was a tough watch. The Highlanders will be bitterly disappointed, but I think reality is they're not good enough right now. There's no doubt about it. And
what, the Aussies or the Highlanders?
Both.
Both.
Yeah. Both. I mean, the Highlanders aren't contenders for the title this year. Neither are the Force, though.
But are we starting to see... we don't have enough players for 5 franchises as well?
There is serious pressure on these Australian teams to get better. From internally, from the organisation itself, they need to work out how they can improve, because at the moment they're not good enough. And clearly their performances. The Reds have struggled. They did a good job of winning up in Apia, but look, the Drua are a team that see themselves...
Didn't answer my question.
What am I avoiding now?
The question was, do you think we don't have enough players for 5 franchises?
We are fine. We've got plenty. Actually, if we spread some of our talent around, we wouldn't have an issue. There'd be no issue whatsoever.
So we need to go back to the draft.
Well, we need to be able to actually move some guys around. Zahan Sullivan, for example, how much better would he be if he'd played more games? I'm not recruiting here. What I'm saying is the fact that if you want an even competition, you need players to be able to move.
I think you've tried to recruit 3 players in the last 10 minutes for the Highlanders, including Daniel Rona.
I'm going to keep going.
The Blues are heading across to Lautoka to Fiji this weekend, and then the Hurricanes do the week after. It is a 2:30 in the afternoon game, Mills. JK, do the Blues win this game or not? Do the Drua push them?
I think the Blues win. I think there's enough there now. I think the Blues, to me, are a sleepy giant. I think there's something's going to happen and they're just going to click. But that Crusaders game for both the Hurricanes and the Blues will make them think very hard about how they go over there and play and who they take over.
I think it's a real challenge for the Blues. I think it's a really big ask, and I think Leon will get them up for it, because 2:30 in the afternoon, it's going to be 30-odd degrees. They are a different team at home. You know, Mickey Burns got them well organised. And if you want to be a champion contender, you need to go over there and win well.
The Drua have got some challenges in some positions, though, I think, in terms of their game management, but they're clearly dangerous at home. And the conditions,
9 players too.
Yeah, exactly. And they know and targeted a number of games. They know their home games are critically important. If you get it wrong, like the Crusaders got it wrong, you get hurt.
You've got to slow.
The Blues will take their strongest team, right?
Yeah,
they better, because if you relax...
Yeah. You've got to slow the game down. You've got to go to set piece, and they showed glimpses of that last night, did the Blues. You know, they've got it up front.
OK, well, just a show of hands. Crusaders Chiefs coming up this weekend. Do the Crusaders beat the Chiefs?
No. I've got
they didn't round 1 at home. JK, Crusaders going to Hamilton this time?
No.
They don't beat the Chiefs.
Well, you know what I'm going to say.
Is it that simple? Is it that easy? Is it going to be a close game?
Oh, this is going.
It's going to be the greatest game of the. It's going to be the greatest.
You all think the Chiefs.
We're emphatic, but it'll be close. It'll be tight as anything. There won't be much.
Yeah, look, I would never, ever write off the Crusaders.
No way.
Okay. Well, that is us. We are done. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll be back next week to reassess that match, the derby. But apparently, it's the Chiefs.